It's so hot. Oh my god. Just a couple of episodes ago, it was still feeling decidedly wintry. And all of a sudden, spring is here, and it's such a hot spring. I do apologize if you can hear the fan in the background, but I'm going to melt if I don't have it on today. Anyway, so welcome, guys. Today we're doing the Halls of Colossus, which we stand before the gigantic walls of the Halls of Colossus, built by giants in an age-long past. The wind echoes mournfully throughout the empty battlements, and here lies the fourth piece of the Staff of Chaos. This dungeon is amazing. I really think this could be my favorite dungeon in the game so far. Wow, it's so good. And so the gimmick will become clear pretty fast. I say gimmick, it's not really a gimmick, it's just the style of the dungeon, I suppose. But the important thing to note is the combat in here is really, really, really easy. And that might have contributed to my enjoyment of it. It's kind of like the mazing aspects of the game are much more pronounced, and the combat aspects of the game are much less pronounced. But I don't actually know whether that's by design on the part of Bethesda. So here it says, you enter the secret passage, the halls. I like the idea that it was a secret way in. The floor here is covered in a fine mold, scratched by large, sharp claws, and the air is warm and moist. Now, they never really talked to us about the idea that the entrance itself was secret. But yeah, I get the vibe from this that it's almost like Bethesda kind of thought of this as like an early game dungeon for a piece of the Staff of Chaos. And how could that be? Well, by the way, here we're equipping a Mark of Light, which the second I try to use, I realize is broken. So I thought I was going to have light through this dungeon, and I'm not going to have light, which is like super frustrating, especially with the super bright sun hitting my screen. But hey, we're out of uses. I'll repair or buy another one on the next dungeon that we go to. There's a couple of mechanics that I still want to show you guys, like creating pits. You see I got that Mark of Pitfall there? I've been teasing you about for a while. We'll get to them. So yeah, going back to the idea that this is like an early game dungeon. If you think about the way that Arena was built, it's a sandbox. It's a true RPG sandbox. One of the first ones you'll ever find. And they really were just trying to create like a playground for you to sort of do half D&D-ish rules and go nuts. And then they slap in this main story where it's like get 8 pieces of the Staff of Chaos. Well, it kind of makes sense to me that at one point in development, and I've read a lot of development stories about this game, and by the end of this gameplay series, you guys will have heard of them. And they've never mentioned what I'm about to say, but it kind of makes sense to me that maybe the original idea was to have all pieces of the Staff of Chaos accessible at any time, and you just kind of had to stumble on them somehow. And then later they made it a bit more linear, which would explain why this dungeon here is filled with what are clearly much easier enemies to fight. Hell, even the temple we did in the last episode was more of a combat challenge, mostly because of the spiders constantly paralyzing me and the hellhounds, which will just instantly delete you unless you have fire resist. But it was way harder, and now this one is trivial. Every single fight until the very end, which you'll see today, is trivial. And then they do something of a boss sequence. For once, we actually get something that feels a bit like a boss sequence. You guys will see that as we go through. But the rest of it, I'm just kind of killing lizard men and, you know, slapping them down. That's pretty much it. So there is a lot to talk about on the adventure here. The idea is that this is very similar to the labyrinth we were in before. The idea is you have an upper floor, which is very mazy, and you travel the maze to get access to the lower floors. And you'll see what I mean. It feels very Lord of the Ringsy here. If you particularly have seen Peter Jackson's movie trilogy from Lord of the Rings, and the way that he developed and showed the Mines of Moria, and those enormous halls in which the Fellowship runs from the Balrog and so on. Arena has a room in here, the Halls of Colossus, that is exactly that aesthetic. And I really wanted the light spell so you guys could see it a bit better in this video too. You know, we could be like Gandalf with the staff. But we'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, up on this upper floor, I'm just getting to grips with the room right now. It's filled with corridors and little rooms everywhere. A defining characteristic is that a load of the rooms are hidden behind hidden walls, like fake walls, where you click it and then it reveals that it's actually a passageway. And the rest are like locked doors. So if you are like one of the more agility-oriented classes, you can probably pick a lot of these locks and you have a more comfortable time, especially considering that the combat is easier. This really feels like, you know, a dungeon for someone who likes to be agile and pickpockety and stealthy and so on. For me, I don't have very high pickpocket, so what I need to do is actually just bash through a lot of these doors, which isn't too challenging, really. You can actually have a fun situation where they have hidden doors, like rock doors, that are also locked, and so I can only get through them by hitting them. So it's like I'm punching a brick wall and then the wall falls away and opens up, and that's kind of a cool little thing, that a combination of different systems in Arena that ends up creating this kind of new experience that you will have a lot of times in this dungeon. And right now I'm just basically wandering around trying to get a sense of what the immediate areas near the entrance are. And I'm happy to do this. You'll see I'm not even referring to my map very much. I'm happy to do it because I don't feel in danger. You pretty much get lizard men who I can one-shot now, ghouls who I can like two-shot. In many ways, this is a great dungeon because it kind of celebrates how far we've come. If you remember that original ghoul from way back when in Stone Keep, my god. But we just slaughter them now. There's like skeletons, and only later do you really find a couple of new enemy varieties. So you see, I try and pick the lock a second ago. It didn't really work. And I suppose you could weasel your way around as best as possible, finding only the locks that you specifically can open. This chest was interesting because most locks in the game, it's like, okay, this is easy, or it laughs at my hopes to pick it. But that chest was like the middle ground, which you don't often see. It kind of has to be quite a precise number for you to see that. So yeah, basically, I'm just going to start bashing my way through these. The thing is, as I mentioned earlier, if you're breaking through stuff, it costs a lot of durability on the weapon that you're breaking them through. So I need to make sure that I actually have two different worthwhile melee pieces of equipment. And in fact, I do. I have like a mithril claymore, and I have the ebony katana. So the ebony dye katana, I should say. So don't forget, ebony is like the final tier. Mithril is not. So I'm going to swap my weapons in a second. But yeah, so you'll see the blue squares mean ways down. So we found two different ways down now. The green square to the south was a way up. And just a million rooms in a million different locations that you can't really make much sense of, like why they're here or what they're leading to. Some of the other, you know, and the main dungeons for the Staff of Chaos tend to be pretty clear in like what their gimmick is, what their game is. And on this one at the start, I'm just very, very confused. I don't really know what that is. So anyway, here's my pilfer spree. Because I think, damn it, there's a chance. There's a chance it will go through. And I give up because I realize there's going to be so many doors here that gambling upwards of like 15 clicks to roll on all these doors is just going to be tedious. And also, I don't know, it's kind of like that save scumming thing, you know? I consider it an accident that in Arena, if you fail to pick a lock, you can just try again, and you can just try again, and you can just try again. I feel like you should kind of respect the game in a lot of ways, you know? If you can't do it, you have to stop. And that is something, like that self-discipline to respect what the game's going for, that goes a long way in this series in general. Not just with Arena, so here's a skeleton, but all the games, really. Especially when it comes to, like, pickpocketing and, you know, breaking locks. It's like, oh, I broke my lockpick. What do I do? Just save scum and reload? Or maybe just chill out and actually, you know, respect, I'm not allowed into that door. I'm not allowed into that chest. That can be a really hard thing to do, especially in the later games where, you know, you're like 3 floors in a cave or something. You find a cool looking chest, but oh dear, you can't get in. Are you really just going to leave, or do you just want to save and reload? It's hard to have that discipline, and we'll see as the LP goes along. But so finally, I wander around enough, and I get a key. And here we go. This is me. I'm going to break through this wall here, which is pretty cool. You just smack it down. I mean, it kind of lifts up instead of falling away, so I get that it doesn't look that good. But we get a golden key. So here is the gimmick with the Halls of Colossus. On floor 1, the floor that I'm on right now, is like 90% of the dungeon. And it is full of keys all over the place. And it's our job to collect them all. There are actually 6, and it's kind of cool because you see different graphics for all 6 of them. And that task is actually laid out here on this body, which I read earlier but forgot to in the commentary. It says you find a hastily scribbled note. It speaks of finding 6 keys to unlock the secrets of the halls. These keys, according to a crude map, seem to be scattered about the level. A red X is scribbled on a spot directly north of there. So that red X, I think, is marking the location of the key that I just found, which is a complete coincidence. The truth is that the first key is really near that body, and I've just missed it. Anyway, so the dead air in floor 2 in the Hall of the Colossus is dry and stinks of decay. In the quietude of the chamber, you can hear the scuffling of many feet. Red eyes stare out and gleam from the darkness. I think it said there, the text disappeared. So this is the room. This is like the Mine of Moria room. An enormous open chamber. And like, how cool is this? And it's filled with rats. Which is fun because, first of all, it makes you think of fighting the rats in the sewer at the beginning and what a pain they were. Remember me struggling so much? And now we can just cleave through them. But they actually swarm you with rats now, which is something that the prison never did. And rat swarms are a threat because not necessarily that they really can do much damage to me, but the disease risk goes way, 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 way up. And the way that this dungeon is designed is at the far end of this, first of all, on the sides of this hall are these little doorways, like the one you just saw I opened. And when you go through them, there's lots of different entrances to the room above at different places. But here, on the most westerly side, it says this lock seems to be made of iron. So we have a door that you need a key. And basically, there's 6 of those in a row, stacked one behind the other. There's an iron key for the iron door, and then there's other keys. Like, I've got a gold key here. There's a gold door there as well. And you need all 6 to get through. And then, in the sides of this long hall, are like loads of little doors that spread you and scatter you randomly out into the top floor, where all the keys are. This is a very simple quest. Just explore as much of floor 1 as you possibly can, to collect 6 keys that are all on floor 1, and then you can actually go through. So I guess the suggestion there is that floor 2 is the real Hall of the Colossus, and this is just like some kind of staging ground. They don't really say too much more than that, and there's like another floor, there's another hall as well, let me be clear, where we actually are going to find the staff is in an actual hall this time. Usually the staff is in a tiny little room, but for this dungeon they change it up. So there are 2 halls. There's like the floor 2 hall, and then there's where the dungeon's actually going to end, which is also a hall. I'm not sure how the sequel game dealt with this, by the way. Elder Scrolls Online does have this as a location. It's amazing to me as I play Arena with you all, because I'm constantly looking for trivia and looking ahead as to like, oh, this is a location will we be able to see in later games? And the funny thing is, so much of the time, it's just the MMO that's done it. You know, if you think about it, some of these later installments, and I'm treating you guys in the audience right now like you're complete Elder Scrolls noobs, okay? So if you've got no idea what's coming up in the future games, good. That's what I'm expecting you. But for those who do know a little, you'll know that they kind of just focus on specific regions. And one of the games is dedicated to a region you hardly go to in Arena. That's the Central Province. So it's mostly just the MMO. It's like the MMO has done all the fan service for these Arena locations. And I'm assuming as we go forward as well. But I haven't played the MMO, so I really don't know what this location's like. I don't know if they did it as like a raid or what. But so here, this is a good example of the kind of thing that we deal with in floor 1. Just wandering into a closed-in, dead-end room and wondering why it exists. This actually happens so often in this dungeon. There is and this is a rarity for Arena, there is a room on this floor that is a closed-in, like, environment with no point to it and no doors. Like, the only way to get to it is to dig to it with pass wall. And then when you get in, there's nothing. There's no, like, special note for you saying, hee hee, you found the hidden room. It's just, it looks like some oddness. And I know that they randomly generated a lot of stuff in this game. But I don't think they randomly generated the main story dungeons. So some dev actually placed a completely sealed-in location. Kind of funny. Maybe for this one dungeon, they like randomly generated it somehow and then just filtered some keys in and made sure you could get to them. That seems like it would maybe make sense. But you need to have a cunning eye. I mentioned this in the previous video, but I like that experience of thinking you found a dead end. You look at the map and you realize that there was actually a door there because there's a little red square on the map. Well, the temple touched on it a little bit. The Halls of Colossus do it constantly, which is cool. They take it to the nth degree. But if that's what they really want to focus on for this dungeon and not the combat, then cool. I'm alright with that. So that's the... Oh, by the way, did you guys hear that? That sound effect. I have no idea what that sound effect was. None. Is that like a witch type enemy? I have no idea. We're not going to find any like witches or anything like that. Banshees or hags or whatever in this dungeon. There's just a crazy, strange scream noise. It actually scared me when I heard it originally. And I hope it scared you guys as well a little bit. So yeah, look, Minotaur, we just can one-shot him. And it's not a problem whatsoever. And then another one who actually quite kindly reveals the entrance through. So despite the fact, by the way, that the MMO is one of the only other games to really feature and talk about this a lot, for what it's worth, there's an Elder Scrolls card game. I don't know whether we'll ever get there, and the card game gives a bit of information. But nonetheless, there is actually quite a lot of lore about this place. Not as far as arena's concerned. There are various like factions and species and people on Tamriel that we'll learn about in later games that then sort of get connected somewhat here. But for now, it's pretty basic. So here's what I'm doing. I just found our second key, right? So I'm typing on my map, got. I know, maybe I could have just put an X down, like the dead guy at the start. So got means I found a key there. And I'm trying to remember where I got the original key as well, which was kind of like above where we entered. Hey, maybe I did get the first key first, right? That was kind of north. So I'm typing got. And as you see in the map, I kind of messed up. I wrote got twice here. I don't actually remember how to delete a note that I've put on the map, so I'm just leaving it there. Those two gots that I've got written, they just mean one key. But there you go. So we got the gold and the ruby key. And you might be thinking at this point, oh god, this is going to take ages. He's got to get 6 keys, and then there's more dungeon after that. But don't worry, I kind of get on a roll now. I managed to just sort of luck my way into several key areas of the dungeon, to be honest. It might not be right this second, but you can kind of just chain from one key to the next, to the next, to the next, if you're in the right place. I'm sure I didn't do this super efficiently. And I would recommend you guys watch a speedrun or something to see the most efficient way to do this. But I'll tell you what, none of them really exist. People who speedrun this game just do the stone keep bug most of the time, and you don't find many examples of anything else. So this is cool. The northern areas of the floor, see, I just kind of stumbled in here. The northern areas of the floor are completely caved in and fallen away, which is a nice change of pace. There's like a very little bit of water in this dungeon as well, and some of the hidden areas actually require you to swim through the water. They do a very cool thing, because you're actually looking for 6 keys plus another little hint, which I'll give you guys in a second. And water plays a key factor there, but up here you've got kind of all these collapsed tunnels. And I suspect that the devs probably put a key here because it just feels so special, but I don't know what it is. So, climbing down, I feel like this is just going to take me into the rest of the dungeon, and indeed it does. This corridor I'm looking at, that's a really deep corridor. Even that's got like different floor and walls and stuff, so you can always kind of tell where you are based on the graphics. That's another thing I really like about this dungeon. But going deep in, we can smash our way through this gate, and you actually find these little cells. 3 ghouls. I just remember back at Stonekeep when we had that like island out in the water, and there were like 3 ghouls there, and I cut out maybe like quarter of an hour, I'm not joking, from one of those earlier videos. Quarter of an hour of me trying to kill ghouls and dying, and trying to kill ghouls and dying, and like just trying to rest to get enough health back but not get ambushed in such a way that I died in the meantime because I couldn't find an alcove and I never had any heal potions. Ridiculous. But yeah, so you kind of got this hidden area, and you've got to be really careful with this. There is a key on the floor in here. It's the diamond key, but it's very subtle. I can only imagine playing this game in the early 90s, no guide, no internet, no friend to help you out, and you're in the halls of Colossus. You've got 5 out of 6 keys. You've explored this room. You've explored everywhere. You've spent like 4 or 5 hours in here. You've explored the room, but you didn't happen to see the golden key on the floor. And now what are you going to do? Searching for a needle in a haystack for however long. I mean, that's crazy, right? But yeah, as a rule of thumb, to anyone watching this and you're going to do your own playthrough of Arena, and you don't want to use a guide or spoiler or anything, and I appreciate you watching my video, so it kind of spoils it to a certain extent. Though I'm not exactly, you know, drawing a line on the map for where I went, and this is a bit crazy and eclectic because I myself am just winging it. But a bit of advice for you: if you see a sarcophagus, you know, like a stone, you know, chamber of some kind with runes and inscriptions on it, there's probably a key near it. If the devs have done something special and weird with a room, I would look very closely. That's how I ended up looking for that gold key there, and that pays off for me again in a minute too. So anyway, yeah, we're kind of in a different area of the dungeon now, different sort of, you know, walls and floor, and it feels special and it feels different. Even though what I'm actually kind of doing here is walking closer to to the start. There's also the matter of the bodies. You know, when we enter, it says we came in through a secret door. There was dust and grime all over the place. We only knew the location of this by translating the Elder Scrolls, which could only be done with a special tablet. How Jagar Tharn knows all these locations and got to them, again, I mentioned in a previous episode, I kind of respect that he's able to do that. But we finally get here. It's that hidden, like, again, look at this. There's a key. This one's much more obvious. But again, isn't it one of those same things? I feel like it's crazy that there's people in here, like bodies. Obviously, they died. But they're like recent bodies, you know, they're not skeletons. I mean, there are also skeletons here, living, you know, reanimated ones, that I like to believe that Jagar put there. If we're ever fighting any undead, because Jagar is a necromancer, right? I like the idea that he put all the undead around, and it's only very rare that there's not undead that we're fighting. Anyway, so that's 4 keys, and did I write it on the map? I don't really know. And there's this hidden door here as well, so you don't actually have to go back into the water. And now what I'm trying to do is, I did have a little tip for this, to basically just hug south until I find water. And from the water in the south, there's basically a long channel that you can swim either left or right in, and both kind of are profitable for you. So that's just generally what I'm trying to do here. There's a zombie. Zombies are pretty tough. They're kind of like, as far as I remember, they're kind of like a higher level variant of the ghoul, almost. I think they have a chance to disease you. They're usually pretty tanky. And they're obviously, you know, simple melee entities that will just hit you. The one mechanic you'll see that I'm not using here is the lower hall, which you can go into the lower hall to, like, fast travel, essentially. If you think about it. Go into the lower hall, go up a staircase, and then all of a sudden you're at a totally new area of the upper floor just because you use the stairs. And I kind of get that, but I like to just keep mapping out the upper floor as much as possible. Because this isn't like other dungeons where there's specific little cells that are locked off and you can never get between them unless you use the middle floor as like a transition. There's none of that. It's just one big open, you know, dungeon with what is essentially a mock make-up fast travel system in there. Another thing about that lower hall that's pretty cool, and you're not really getting a sense of it in my video here, but I want you guys to imagine that you're spending hours in here. Like, you get a key and you really cherish that key, so you go downstairs to try and put it in the lock. Well, if you do that a lot, because enemies respawn and this was a cool little place that I felt like I just wanted to camp here, because it felt so safe. I think technically it's not safe, because it's not an alcove, but it worked out. If you're spending hours in here and you're going down, putting a key in, coming up, going down, because enemies respawn each time, that idea of rats swarming down there in that dank room that is so descriptive and lovely, you'd really feel, because you're just going to be constantly having to deal with these goddamn rats. You're going to see I have some problems in a minute. So I've had my fair share of fighting a ton of those rats. And I kind of get what the devs were going for. Right, so going through the water takes you, again, into sort of a new region. I like how this dungeon has so much different art in it. And, you know, it's loading into memory and remembering the fact that you have 6 keys. And each key is a specific key for a specific door, by the way. So, like, I don't have the iron key. That's, like, what I think the first key you're meant to find is. As I said earlier, I kind of missed it. That's going to be the last one I get. So, because I don't have the iron key for the iron door, which is the first one, I can't use any of my other ones. So, the game's actually going to remember me getting all 6 here. So yeah, the special thing here is the one place in this whole dungeon that you find hellhounds, even though they were everywhere before, and we are still obviously in elsewhere, and it is supposed to still be hot and so on, this is the only place you find hellhounds. They're guarding one of the keys. And what was that? That would make sense to me if this is the ruby key that they were defending, but I don't actually know if that's the way that Bethesda did it. And as you saw, a ton of the fireballs came pelting out at me. I kind of backed up. Just drank a fire resist potion, I was fine. There is a type of resist potion I'm not using, which I probably should, and that's resist electric, I think. Resist shock, sorry, they call it. I'm pretty sure that's in the game, and I really should use resist shock, because I'm starting to find more and more air damage come at me, and some of those wraiths and spirits from the recent dungeons have been throwing that at me as I've been going forward. So now what we're going to do is we went into the water trench and went west, right? and climbed up and we were in the fiery area. Well, now I'm going to do something of an optional thing. So remember how Arena has riddles and you can just Google the answer to the riddles, so you just know it and you can get through. You don't have to figure things out. Well, there's a riddle coming up that requires you to get some information from this floor. So I could just Google it and type it and say, there you go, guys. But, you know, that's ridiculous. Let's play the game as best we can. So we're actually going to do what the devs wanted us to do. By going all the way along the watery trench, you can come into this room. This is like a pretty big hall. Is this one of the halls of Colossus? It's kind of your choice. Some more dangerous enemies in here, as you can see. We got the ghosts. And this statue. Now, you don't need to come to this statue, but it gives you this information that there's an inscription engraved here on the moss-caked stone. Theodorus. So who's Theodorus? Well, we're going to get a riddle in a second asking us about him. And it's going to say, so what's his name? And we need to know what his name is. So if you don't come in this room, you're never going to be able to deal with that. And that's a bit of a gut punch really as well, because this thing is after all 6 keys. So you can explore the whole dungeon but miss this watery trench. And then get stuck anyway, which is hilarious. So much like with the keys, I thought it might be kind of fun to mark on the map his name, which I guess I'll think to do in a second. So yeah, Theodorus. And again, with so much of Arena, I'm really sorry if this series feels a bit, you know, hollow sometimes. At the start of the adventure and the start of the franchise, Bethesda did not add that much information. Yeah, there's the word Theodorus. Is there more to it? No, not really. That's it. Maybe in the later games they'll talk more about Theodorus, but for now he's just kind of the architect or the builder of the halls of Colossus, and we get his inscription from a dragon, you know, statue. But is he actually related to dragons in any way? Probably not. I mean, it's funny, the introductory text described that this place was built by giants, right? So does that make Theodorus a giant? Giants we don't really interact with very much in this game. Again, I'm wishing I had the light spell. So anyway, I've now got 5 keys and I found Theodorus. The only key I'm missing is the original one I was supposed to find right near the entrance. Now, the thing about the Theodorus room is it's actually kind of close to the entrance of the dungeon. It's just you have to do this massive horseshoe maneuver where you go south into the water and then you hook your way back up. So, all told, I kind of lucked out here, really, guys. I'm not in a bad position, and it won't take me long to actually find the thing. I'm actually consulting a map at the moment, just so that I know the quickest way to get back to the start. And here, this key, when we picked it up, or maybe that's what I was looking at, actually, when I was on the map there. We picked up key number 5, and I never actually marked it. So, yeah, I typed that there, and then I typed Theodorus, which, obviously, you've got to get the spelling precise. It's not case sensitive, but the spelling does have to be precise. And this is kind of the dungeon as I know it. I never actually explored the bottom left. And as far as I know, there's no real reason to explore the bottom left. It looked like there was a way there via the water. So maybe it's kind of a water section. I'm a bit sick of water sections in the dungeon. I've been really watching the past 2 episodes for a water section that we can float over. Because there are some of these cool spells, like Pitfall and Levitate, that I just kind of want to use. But I haven't had too much opportunity. Pitfall, I still don't know what amazing opportunity I'll ever have. Maybe I should just use it at some point to demonstrate it to you guys. Because I don't know when it will actually be beneficial. I mean, what kind of precise situation is that? I'm dying against a bunch of melee guys. I run away and delete the floor behind myself so they can't get to me. And then I shoot them down with a bow. I mean, that is a playstyle. You could do that, but it's quite a lot of fiddly little things that you have to chain together. So, yeah, that's pretty much the Hall of Colossus. As I just make my way back to the entrance. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. I come downstairs here because if you can find any doorway, any stairway, then obviously you'll be in the hall, and all you have to do in the hall is charge east or west, and there you have it. I mean, through a billion rats at the same time. I actually messed this up. I'm going west. West is to the keys, the key doors. What I'm actually looking for is just the main staircase that we'd initially used. So I'm slicing my way through all these rats. I actually missed the friggin' doorway at that as well. I wonder how many rats they actually spawned in here. And it's on my right, but I'm kind of flailing around a bit here. Do you hear that weird sound effect in here as well? That weird creaking, kind of crackling, insecty noise. So, yeah, looking at the map, I think, oh, it's right here. It's this thing, but then... Oh, dear, wait. This is just the iron door. And we don't have the iron key. So this is not where I wanted to be. But so I'm just going to run all the way along on the east now. And since all the rats are dead, it's over. See, look how cool this room would have been if I had the light spell. I mean, we kind of get in the effect of being surrounded by blackness, and we've got like a little sphere of light around us, but it could have been much better. So we're back here at the very beginning, really, right? I take a right, I take another right. There's going to be the dead body with the scribbled note with the X marked on it. This guy completely spawns out of nowhere. And yeah, can you see how nice and smooth and comfortable it's been? Just not having to worry about fights. That's not just because I'm playing a deliberately strong combo. It's because this is genuinely, for where you are in the story at this point, a much easier part of the game. Don't forget, a lot of the way that I'm spec'd is actually for offense. And the fact that most of them are only just scratching me is just because they're kind of weak. You'll also notice when the whole way through today's video, I don't level up. There is not a single level up in this video, despite the countless creatures that I've cleaved through. I actually think that Arena was pretty good at that, honestly. Scaling levels to make sure that really you do have to be at the cutting edge to be getting worthwhile experience. They were probably very, very concerned about people overly grinding and all of their random generated stuff. And here it is, like just 2 doors from the entrance, really, the iron key. Yeah, literally 2 doors from the entrance. It's just I had to go left instead of directly forward immediately. I mean, I won't argue. The place is obviously very nondescript. I mean, you get these little posts and squares in here. And so, yeah, I'll save now. Last time I saved was at 4 keys. So we'll go 6 keys here. And in theory, I'm about 30 seconds away from being done with the whole dungeon. In theory, if I were so minded and I just knew everything to type and everything to do right away. But there's a really hard riddle coming up that I'm very, very curious. If you guys in the comments pause the video in a second, you'll actually be able to figure out. So, cleaving through the rats one more time, or so I think, because I'm about to mess up pretty royally. Here we get the iron door. And a little something interesting. The whole way through the series, you guys have been seeing in my save files a file called the Halls of Colossus. I don't know if any of you guys paused and scrutinized or looked at that. Well, that file is there because that is the last save I made for my very first ever Arena playthrough, which I've actually copied through 3 different installs now. So here I'm trying to get back in, but there's a rat attacking me, and he's diseased me, so I have to use cure disease here, which obviously I came prepared. But yeah, and where that file ended in the Halls of Colossus that you've been looking at is here, this chamber right here. I got the iron key on that original playthrough, and I got several of the later keys, but I never got this key, the gold key. I never got it, so I couldn't go any further in, and I'm not sure what happened. That was probably around, oh god, 2015 maybe earlier. I think it was probably around 2015. Since that very original playthrough, I've actually had several other playthroughs, maybe 2 other ones before the one we're doing now, that ended at different places, further or later. I actually can't remember. But this save file I've kind of always kept. But so this lock is adorned with sapphires. There was a typo a second ago, by the way. I wanted to point that out to you all. You can rewind. It was kind of a ridiculous typo, to be honest. There's quite a few in Arena I've started to notice from the wikis. And so we come downstairs. So, you notice I still have a key. I don't know why the devs did this. The amethyst door is on floor 3, which is where we now are. And floor 3 feels like a labyrinth. Why did they do that? They let you get 5 keys, go through the door, and then it's like, oh, there's an amethyst one. Tee-hee. I can't really remember if the amethyst key was in an especially obscure place upstairs. I don't think it was. But, yeah, that would be pretty frustrating, I think. You wouldn't find games these days doing something like that. I don't believe. So we're in kind of a little labyrinthy area, and you might think you've got a whole other labyrinth floor, but you don't. What you do have is a hidden door right at the start here with 2 ghouls. If you can kill them, there's no treasure, but there is this alcove. So I'm guessing the reward for finding this hidden room is a place to safely camp. I'm already at the point in the game where I'm potion spamming, but maybe other builds aren't, and so that room's useful. Okay, so we get a riddle. I'm the architect of this hall, whose name is forgot in the dust of time. Yet, where there is no dust, where the river would speak, there is my name. Find this place and then return to tell my name. Tell me my name. Only then shall you pass this door. What is my name? It's not really a riddle. And you might come at this believing it's a riddle, just because of the precedent and the way that the rest of the game's been. But no, it's that you've got to go upstairs through the lake and find Theodorus. He says, Theodorus, Theodorus is my name. Pass, child. Beware the halls ahead. So a little note, you can pass wall to break a lot of this dungeon. A lot of it. They weren't very careful with that. And these riddle doors, you can pass wall as well. This is the last one. They do like 2 riddles back to back with the weird amethyst door. I don't know, it seems a bit scattershot. And this is like, to me, an almost impossible thing. I would never be able to figure this out on my own. So pause it if you will and see if you can figure it out. And careful of the comments because there might be spoilers. Answer me this and prove thy wit, for a true challenge is rare indeed. I am twice as old as 3 times the age of the Sphinx of Gazia, Agamemnus, who obviously we saw. Agamemnus, by the way, Mamnus. Divided by 1/9 the age of the Sphinx of Canis, Igon, who left this world 26 years ago. What then is my age? Go on in, figure it out. So, by the way, it's not wordplay at all. You just have that to work with. It's a very mathy puzzle. And so you can pause and try and figure it out. If you want a hint, here's a hint for you, if you're playing the video along. You've got to look at their names and associate their names with numbers. Okay, go. Alright, so here's the solution. The game is you've got to take the letters of their names and count how many into the alphabet is. So I, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, I. And whatever number that is, you jot down, and then G, and then O, and then N, and then you add them all up, and then you do the same for the other name, and then you do all the maths, and you end up with 108. So that idea of taking like the alphabet index number of each character in there, the word that makes up their name, I just would have gone over my head. So I actually Googled that one, I looked that one up. You're free to enter, child, but be warned, there be devils within. Turns out I'm pretty bad at these riddles. Pedestals hang in the air in this room, defying all laws. Your senses are alert to the arid stench of brimstone and to the whirring of leathery wings. So here's the next hall of Colossus. This is where we find the Staff of Chaos. And I did promise you there's something of a boss sequence here. It's pretty nice. The flavor text kind of made me think that there was going to be a dragon boss, and I was totally prepared for there not to be anything to fight at all. But there actually are. There are these things, the homunculuses. So they're like spell-casting, draconic, imp-looking creatures. They are by far the most dangerous thing we found in the game so far. So I think Arena's done very well here. This is where my whole theory that you could play the dungeons out of sequence kind of goes out the window. You can actually skip them and just grab the staff and run. But I decided to fight them. I assume because they're so dangerous, they give me a lot of XP and it would be worthwhile fighting them. And so I just beat the hell out of them. I would have expected just one creature in the room, like one dragon to fight or something. But there's actually lots of these. It's either that there's lots of them or that they teleport away, and I think I've killed them, but what they've actually done is TP off. Because you notice the death animation doesn't really have a good satisfying sound effect on it. And it sort of looks like they might have just ran off. So I don't know. Anyway, I kill a few of them, and you'll notice I haven't saved for a while, and you might have also noticed how quickly my health went down, and I don't have resist shock, so I probably should save. So naturally, why don't you guys guess what's about to happen in a second that's going to cause me to need to load. No, I don't die. I bugged the game. Yeah, I get trapped in the wall. And try as I might, I'm actually going to cut a ton out of the footage out here. I cannot get out of this, so I have to go back to when we picked up the 6th key. I have to go back through the chamber with the rats. And then, by the way, I accidentally saved over a load and then loaded over a save. Like, my brain just broke, essentially. And it was all around not a good time. Alright, so editing back in now, when I finally returned. Talking about the homunculuses as well. Now, this is an interesting one. This enemy, this creature, whatever this is in lore, This only exists here in Arena. That's it. Arena is the only game that touches on these. But maybe we can assume that Jagar created these, like spawned these here. Maybe we can assume they were always at the bottom of the halls. We were kind of warned by the riddle to beware of this room, so I like the idea that was baked in. And here's the piece of the Staff of Chaos. The fourth piece of the Staff of Chaos fastened itself to the other three in a flash of blue light. The staff is now half complete. So yeah, we're half done, and in fact, the next videos I think will whiz by, so we're well over halfway through the series. But the staff itself is half done now, which is awesome. And so yeah, you only find these things here. The devs never re-implemented them. The MMO has a creature with a similar name, but looks nothing like this, and has no connection whatsoever. And I guess the only other thing to say is, homunculus I've seen in other games, and I've had it referred to in fantasy before, but it usually like means like a mini person, like a small creature that's like kind of human-y. And Google actually has a very similar definition. It says, a microscopic but fully formed human being born from which a fetus was normally believed to develop. That was the historical use for it. And their contemporary use is a very small human or humanoid creature. I don't see how Bethesda's homunculus imp dragon creatures in here are anything like that, but there you have it. So that's the staff pretty much done. All I gotta do is escape now. And another reason why I really like this dungeon's design, not just because it has big, pronounced, interesting areas, but obviously we're right near the entrance. You just take a couple of turns and we're out. A couple more lizard men that we have to fight, but we're back out into the plains of elsewhere. And we're ready to move on, kind of. I think what I will do between this video and next is rest a while at elsewhere, because I do want to see this place when it's not the middle of winter. I want to see the deserts. So I picked a town to go to. I went to Senshal. The southern port of Senshal greets you. Know that you are welcome within these walls, but take care not to take advantage of our hospitality. I just like the idea of coming here because I wanted to feel like I'd really explored the depths of elsewhere. It's such a cool region of the world, and yet there's so little opportunity to visit it in the subsequent games. So I came down here, and it's just so not right that it's winter. Anyway, we rest for a cutscene.
You have recovered the fourth piece. I honor your bravery. Listen closely now, my friend, for Tharn has begun in earnest to look for you. Do not fear. He does not know your true identity, but he can sense the staff's power. With 4 of the 8 pieces, you stand out like a lantern at night. I urge you to caution. The 5th piece of the staff lies in an ancient stronghold of sorcery called the Crystal Tower. It was said that the southern tip of the Dragon's Teeth, which stretches from the ice-covered mounts of High Rock to the wooded forests of Valenwood, could be seen on the horizon from the top parapet of the tower. This would lead me to believe it is not far south of the majestic mountain's range. You must find the tower and gain access to recover the 5th piece of the Staff of Chaos.
So, some nice cryptic information. I actually really like the setting building there. When I think Elder Scrolls, I do tend to think big towers, but maybe that's just because of my infatuation with Oblivion and the White Gold Tower at the Imperial City more than anything else. You can actually get 2 cutscenes back to back, so I'm just resting to get Jagar.
It is obvious, whoever you are, that you are a cunning and worthy foe. Perhaps Rhea chose well, even if it was her last act. I will not insult your intelligence with further digression. My minions soon approach, but I will not consign you to the dark door of death. You have proven your worth. Once you are killed, I will raise you to fight for me as one of my servants. Give him to me now, and I offer you everlasting life.
I love that line. I will raise you as, and then, you know, you usually get the awkward break, but that time it worked. I will raise you as one of my servants. It works. It was a dramatic pause, guys. So he sends some random guards at us this time, which is just so not on theme, and they're rubbish and just do nothing. So good job there. And yeah, we're pretty much ready to move on and ask people for directions for the next piece. I want to set up some more gear. I want to figure out some of the enchantments we've got. Make sure we have a light spell. So I'll probably go on a bit of a preparation spree between this next episode. And I'll have a lot to talk to you guys about. In addition, hopefully, I mean, we're in winter of the 2nd year right now. So if I maybe rest up, if Tarlin has a bit of a break now for a few months, when we come back, we can see what this place looks like in its regular climate, and we'll be off for the 5th piece. I'm actually hoping to do both the mini dungeon and the main dungeon in the same video tomorrow. So we'll be 5 of 8 done by this time at the end of the next part. Let's see how all that goes. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you shortly.